You're watching Public Comment every Thursdays at 8 a.m. The live stream. Detroit is different and Bridge Detroit. Local politics of Detroit. All right, welcome back. Welcome back to Public Comment. Once again, where myself, Khary, Frazier of Detroit is different. And also my brother in arms at this give you updates on municipal politics of what's happening in and around Detroit. And today, not in studio, but at Bridge Detroit headquarters for an interesting episode of Public Comment. Malachi, Barrett, how are you?
Yo, coming to you live from News Center, looking out at Grand Boulevard right now on an overcast day.
I got you. Hey, we make it happen. For everybody that doesn't know, we record this the day before. Eventually, we're gonna, when we do our year-end wrap-up, we're gonna have like our live reports and all of that stuff so people can pop in, as what Piper Carter says. Y'all need to do it live. Y'all need to do it live. So guess what? Piper Carter, towards the end of the year when we do our year-end wrap or something like that, we're gonna get some live comments and stuff and see if y'all really do wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and watch this. And we appreciate everybody for watching this. The YouTube numbers are still climbing, but the Facebook numbers are getting stronger and stronger and stronger as we stay committed to this. Municipal government updates every week. So Malachi, two stories that stand out. One, I got a whole lot of color commentary like I usually have with this show for about solar power in the city of Detroit. But I'm gonna let you kick this off. The neighborhood solar gets a charge. It was a big announcement even today. This went before council yesterday, and council had some questions about this. So break down what was happening before I put in some 2 cents and everything.
Yeah, so I assume people have a general idea of the city's solar plan. This is a proposal the mayor put forward. Oh man, maybe late last year. I feel like it's been.
Yeah, it was like it was third quarter last year, I believe.
Yeah. The idea basically is he's looking to recruit neighborhoods to voluntarily put up solar fields that would be used to power municipal buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking for neighborhoods that have a large number of vacant properties or properties owned by the land bank, blighted sites. The idea is that turning open land into a solar farm will discourage illegal dumping and put underused sites to good use, and also advance the city's climate goals. We are, setting a track to be 100% emissions free by 2050, I think, and reduce emissions incrementally up to that point. It has been a controversial idea. I think there's a lot of skepticism from residents about whether this kind of development will be a benefit, and if people will get if the neighborhoods will fundamentally change by adding these in. And so now city council is in the position of approving some contracts and setting up kind of the justification for like eminent domain or property acquisition in the neighborhoods that have come forward. Mayor Duggan on Monday announced the first three for the first phase of the program, Gratiot-Findlay, State Fair, and the Van Dyke-Lynch neighborhoods. And they're considering 5 other neighborhoods that will be selected at a later date. Overall, the city's trying to redevelop about 200 acres of land into solar farms. And yeah, I mean, it's been a mixed bag. Some council members were pretty opposed to the idea of putting what they see as like industrial uses in neighborhoods, and are kind of concerned about this repeated history of putting industrial sites where people live. Other folks view it a little bit more positively and see it as an opportunity to revitalize neighborhoods. I don't really know what kind of the long-term impacts of this have been. We'll have to see if there's other studies that have been done. I'm kind of curious about that. But this discussion is now at city council, and they're going to be talking about it in committees over the next couple of weeks, probably before approving it. And I think it'll be really interesting to see where people end up falling on all this.
Well, like I say, I got a lot of 2 cents about this. So, in transparency, part of the work that I do with Detroit is Different ties me in with the marketing firm Creative Differences. Creative Differences was awarded now for a couple of years a contract with Solidarity. Solidarity is a organization that does energy democracy work in Highland Park and in Detroit. So, around Christmas, I don't know if you saw an ad that said, "Hey, do you know that DTE is raising your rates?" Which DTE is always asking to raise rates, but that was what was happening around Christmas, and that was some of the work that I was doing with Solidarity. It appeared through Detroit is Different, and I've learned so much more about solar energy in this position and energy democracy. So, first, let me break down what energy democracy is. Energy democracy is kind of what you think it would be, but more so about empowering you to make your choices about how you would like to power whatever that may be for your home or your business or your the places where you gather. And energy democracy is not anything that is as empowered as we would imagine it to be. When we think about green justice and we think about sustainability, the thought process is, hey, it's a good idea and the government's even encouraging this and it's all these dollars connected to it, which is yes, but there are also many rules and regulations about how we power different things, to the point that even if you were to buy a solar panel, like right now, you go out, get a solar panel for your house right now, and you like, you know what, I'm gonna go to DT and tell them, hey, you can go wherever you need to go, but the last place you come in is here. They're gonna say, hold on, hold your horses, you can't do that. What you're going to have to do is you're going to put a solar panel on the top of your house, and due to the grid and everything, you, from having that solar panel, you're going to now get credits on your DTE bill because it doesn't flow directly, as you can turn off your power and go straight to solar power. Hence, this is part of the blocks in energy democracy. So this is like geothermal energy, solar energy, wind energy. A lot of the rules and regulations that go about how you could power anything for you is to the point where it seems like every equation goes back to you need to be with whatever was determined, the as they call it in my business school, Walsh College Business School, the, as they call it a needed monopoly. The needed monopoly, meaning the necessity of a monopoly of DTE energy, is needed so for the safety. That's the argument that DTE would give through an entity called the MPSC, the Michigan Public Service Commission. The Michigan Public Service Commission is the body that is over the state regulation of how different energy services provide energy for the state of Michigan. So that would include in Southeast Michigan, more so Consumers Energy and DTE. DTE and Consumers Energy provide so much and have consistently boosted, like every time out DTE can raise their rates, they're raising their rates. It's kind of like if you follow those charts of colleges, you know what I'm saying? Like where you're like, damn, you could have gone to University of Michigan in 1975 for like $4,000 a semester. And now it's like, you know, an arm, a leg, and a kidney worth. Because every time out, even as a public institution, that it could raise tuition, it did raise tuition. Every time DTE can raise its rates every 6 months, it's looking to raise its rates the maximum amount under the idea of it's providing sustainable options to you. And what we see even in times right now where we have been rolling blackouts every time in the summertime when it rains, and even sometime in any time when it rains, we're thinking it's a possibility we could lose power. And this is what led to the municipal government of the city of Detroit stepping up saying we need new energy options. So this is my 2 cents about this. This bill and ordinance that's being moved forward through the executive body is only about giving power and solar energy to what they're saying are the municipal buildings and municipal functionality. That is a huge problem for me as a community advocate. So what that means is technically I could live right next door to a solar farm. There could be a blackout, which is very commonplace, and I could not have any of that energy. I could be playing exponentially high rates, which is very possible because DTE is always raising its rates, and not receive any benefit for living next door to a solar farm. This is horrible because it's using my money as a taxpayer and resident of the city of Detroit to create a solar farm where I'm not going to receive any benefits. The only benefit that would be received is if you are a person that lives in this community that they're labeling as very vacant and more destitute, they're going to give you what they say is double what the property value is worth, which is...
Let me just can I jump in real quick, Khary? They've also talked about community benefits agreements.
And I know that those are the $5,000 grants that they're giving to some of these organizations. And my bad, I've been on this, and I'm high horsing, but I'll just break it.
I think this is going to be kind of the question for neighborhoods that have stepped up is like, what do I get out of having these here? I mean, I guess if you don't want to live next to them, you can get a better deal potentially on selling your home, but then you have to figure out where you're going to move. So I don't know.
And it's double what the rate is now, right?
You're saying it's a generous offer, right? Yeah, double your fair market value or $90,000, whatever's higher, basically. So if your market value is over 90K, you'll get more than that. But if it's under 90K, you'll at least get 90K. But they also talked about creating community benefits agreements with people who live within a couple blocks, I think, maybe a mile or so around.
And this is clearly the biggest problem in it. Okay, if the government feels as though more options are needed for something that's more reliable, one, DTE is the number one company, I believe, in the running to win this bid. So that's more government money going to DTE. That's municipal money going to DTE, which
they are one of a handful of companies that'll probably end up. Yeah, there's different companies are being contracted for the various neighborhoods that are signing up, and DTE is one of them. So yeah, they're among. Yeah, they're not the only company, but that's one of the things that council is going to have to decide is if they want to approve a contract with DTE, and I imagine there will be some robust discussion. We'll say, yeah.
So that's one of the things, and two, we already know what the community benefit should be. If the city wants solar, why wouldn't the community get solar? Especially if the city is representative of the city and it's in my community.
Yeah, I mean, I would. Yeah, I think that's an interesting. Like, if I live next to a solar field, why can I not take advantage of the solar power? Especially, in case of a blackout or a power outage, which we know people deal with a lot. They will supposedly get some funding for energy efficiency upgrades. Yeah, like you were saying, up to like $25,000, I believe, to reduce some of their energy costs. That's not really the same thing as getting access to the renewable energy that's being created. Those are so far just for city buildings. Yeah.
And the key point in my 2 cents really is the fact that it is DTE already has a series of solar farms that they've paid for with land, and they've paid for those themselves or through its own entity, through Michigan Public Service money or customer money or whatever.
That's in the neighborhood, the one you're talking about?
I mean, it's throughout. It's throughout the state of Michigan. It's some like in like the Washtenaw County, some throughout Wayne County. It's different places. I want to say the one most recent the one I always see is the one off like Greenfield and off like the Greenfield 96 exit. So like
Whitfield-Calloway talked about, a DTE solar field in O'Shea that was put up some number of years ago.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want these in neighborhoods either.
But the key question about this though is this is our money going to build their business entity, right? And we're not going to get any of that solar power. That's inequitable for me. I mean, I used to wonder my whole life, and I mean, this will be the analogy. I think I'm probably going to give. It's funny, I'm on public comment the show, but I think I'm going to give a public comment at City Council next week related to this. But this is similar to like when people say, "Damn, how do those people in Africa live next door to a diamond mine and are broke as hell?" This is similar. We're going to be living next to solar farms and not getting any solar power from it. And it was built with our tax money. That's inequitable for me. That's extremely unacceptable for me. That's like a no-go. It doesn't make any sense. It's bad enough the fights and the contentious battles we've had over water and being at the waterways and what's happening with water in Detroit. But now we're going to create another natural resource with our tax dollars that's not going to come back to us. And I guess you could say, well, it's going to go to municipal buildings to exist, but it's like, nah, help the residents. Clearly help the residents. That is the argument as far as I'm concerned. And anything outside of that is a sleight of hand trick as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, but yeah, as you can see, like I've been in some discussions from the beginning of this. And even when I present this argument to some of the groups organizing around this, they look at it like it's a crazy argument because it's like, well, nobody even considered that. And we're going to offer them the community benefits agreement. So like, I believe it's like a $25,000 package for different community groups and organizations that are associated with this, which is like, I mean, you're still exploiting the rampant amounts of poverty throughout these communities, whether it be the $90,000 for the house or the $25,000 for the community benefits. When we really see that the sustainable option, hence this is about sustainability, would be to share in the resource of the solar power. I believe it should be a map drawn up of something connected to within this radius, especially when we think about the government buildings and stuff. Like if it can go from the deep west side all the way down to the city county building, I believe that should be a shared lower cost and lower expense of solar power coming to every Detroit resident, especially when we think about the insustainability of this DTE grid and the cost that like the always rising cost of DTE, and also just the inconsistency of the service that DTE delivers when it comes to power and gas throughout the city of Detroit.
Yeah, I wish I knew more about the community benefits process for this project, because I don't know if there's an opportunity for residents to get more in those neighborhoods from the city. You know, you get some weatherization improvements, but maybe you also can.
DTE gives that. That's
give us
some power. Give us what you want out the deal. You know what I'm saying? If you getting that, I want that. That's where we're living in a world of equity and fairness, and we're talking sustainability. Because, you know, I hate to liken this to other communities, but in other communities, you put solar there, guess who's getting solar? The community. So to exploit communities that have dealt with, which kind of goes into the next topic, but dealt with extreme poverty and disparity and you know, resident exodus, you definitely need to make sure that that's how you empower, and that's really how you heighten the value of the property in the first place. I mean, if I move into a neighborhood and I know that, like, oh man, you know, I'm getting about 15 to 20% off of all my energy bills every month, that's money in the bank right there.
Yeah, I think I mean, council's pretty divided on this, so I think there's going to be an opportunity for people to come forward to council and raise some of the issues you're talking about. Sheffield, Tate, Calloway, we're all pretty much, you know, not convinced at this point that this is something that they're supportive of.
I know Durhal is definitely he's already Durhal he was one of the big advocates even beforehand of pushing for this. And I'd imagine, you know, some of the other people that seem to sway with the executive body often. I would imagine that Scott Benson, being that he's pushed for other energy sustainability acts, that is supportive of this as well. I'm just assuming that.
Yeah, that's probably a fair guess. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think this is going to be probably a couple weeks of discussion, and a lot of the stuff that you're raising here will likely center in these conversations.
Well, I'm definitely going to throw my 2 cents in on this one. And as we talk about it, it kind of connects to this next thing. Lord knows, this is something that Keith Williams of the Reparations Task Force has been pushing for forever. But City of Detroit, the city council gives an apology to Black residents for historical and ongoing injustices, discrimination, and harm inflicted upon them. This has been an apology that Keith Williams has been speaking to for not just he wanted city council, he wanted the mayor, he wanted the county executive, he wanted the governor, and also the president of the United States to do this. It is definitely a statement. I believe that this kind of goes into the video essay and the work of council member, my late godmother, Joanne Watson, what she spoke with Dorothy Tillman, the alderman in Chicago, of with the apology, now other legal actions can be taken. And there's some interesting ways that an apology can be taken in legal action. Lord knows I am not an attorney, but as people sometimes think that I play one on TV or something. But this opens up the discussion for what does the ongoing injustices mean, and gives somewhat of a precedent. This definitely does not move into like executive actions for reparations, but it opens up some discussions. What's your take on it, and what was the response at council?
Yeah, interesting enough, council didn't really discuss this. It was unanimously approved without much kind of debate or discussion. But this is definitely something that the reparations task force leader, Keith Williams, has been pushing for. He looks at it, I think, as being kind of a table setter for recommendations that will come out of that task force. They have a deadline of next March, but I think we might see something before the end of the year. And it, basically the task force is charged with trying to identify specific things that the city did to harm Black communities. And if you read through this, there's a link in our notebook report from Wednesday this week. There's a link in there for you to read it yourself. But it outlines, everything from the Belle Isle race riot and the 67 uprising to multiple kind of eras and distinct incidents of police brutality. It talks about a failure to address educational needs, talks about redlining and housing discrimination, construction of freeways and urban renewal programs, and putting industrial factories in Black neighborhoods, as we kind of alluded to earlier. Kind of like,
as I said.
Yeah. So it sets this, broad view of the different things that the city needs to address through its reparations task force. And I think you're right to note that, an apology is considered kind of an initial action in reparative justice work. Other cities around the country have done this while, pursuing their own reparations task forces. And I think it's interesting that it ends with this. You got up on the screen now, these 8 kind of commitments, which includes addressing the root causes of racial inequity by implementing policies aimed at promoting racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. I mean, that seems to line up pretty closely with what the task force will be working on. Similar to the city committing to providing resources to Black communities to address disparities in a number of different areas. So I think, Keith is hopeful that this is kind of an early commitment to follow through on whatever will come out of that reparations task force. Now, I'm a little bit more kind of uncertain about what the impact of this is, because it's just a resolution. The council passes resolutions all the time that are, essentially strongly worded statements, but they're kind of pieces of paper. They're not really like legally binding in any way. So how much does this really like assure that Detroit will follow through? Like rhetorically, I think it's really important that that they've done this, but in terms of like how much power does it actually have? I don't, I guess we'll have to see if they follow through on it, those commitments.
I would definitely agree with you in reference to that, but I also would add into that this standing in the space of a resolution still arms what I would consider it arms, like I say, an act to happen next. This is not, I would say, the paramount victory, but it's a part of a strategy more so. And from this strategy, we can see what could be resolved, and from it, some of the things, as you even spoke to with education, some things may not even be in the scope of the municipal government of Detroit. And then after we get past that, as we've known through corporate counsel and other things connected to the city of Detroit, what actions can be taken after that, that's where the legal minds need to come in and wrestle around. With that being said, I still am a firm believer in public voice, and public can move forward so many agendas. Speaking of that, you have, as we kind of get to a close, you have your next discussion and conversation with Bridge Detroit that's going to be talking about I-375 project and reparations. Give a piece into that.
Yeah, so that's set up. Let me see if I can pull up the date really quickly. Every summer, Bridge Detroit does a series of town halls focused around specific subjects. We already had our first earlier this month about elections and voting access. And, we are interested in this kind of connection between what's going on with the I-375 rebuild and the promise to recognize the history in some way of Black Bottom and Paradise Valley, which obviously were destroyed, razed, demolished to make room for newer gentrified housing and later on the freeway. So we are convening a conversation on July 16th focused on I-375 and reparations. We're hoping to have some members of the task force there. More details to come on that. Keep following us on social media. We'll be putting out more information when we get a little bit closer because we're still a couple weeks out for that. But, MDOT held a big meeting last night about I-375. There's still a lot of frustration about the design from residents and also skepticism, I think, about what are you actually going to do to acknowledge Black Bottom Paradise Valley. So, we hold these town halls really to give people direct access to officials. People will have the opportunity to ask questions, and we feed you. It's a free event, and you get a meal out of it too. So definitely come check that out.
Yeah, this one, I missed the last one, but I'm planning on being at that one. I may try to definitely have a lot to say in reference to that from the video essay, and then also just following the track of it and what that means, because it's such an interesting dynamic of how do you honor that legacy when it's like, okay, clearly it's kind of as far as I'm concerned, it's like the solar debate all over again. The best way to honor the legacy of those people is to give them back some land. You know what I'm saying? As far as I'm concerned. And then you get into the other science of it, because a lot of the people that own the land weren't even the Black residents. This is one of the things that I've brought up to a couple of people before. You know what I'm saying? So like, where does that stand? And then I guess you could also give the argument at the time Black people couldn't own property. So it's layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of a discussion. That one I'm definitely may come with my notepad and some bullet points before I just go on a rift. But
I'll be honest too. We don't really have a good sense of what either Kresge Foundation or MDOT or the city, who is kind of responsible for implementing some kind of reparative policy around the freeway. And I think there's a lot of questions around the land use, because there's a lot of new real estate that's going to get opened up by this project. Definitely. So who's going to get access to that land? Is there going to be an opportunity for Black businesses or owners or what? What are they going to do? There's a lot of unanswered questions about that. We don't really have a lot of detail on what that will look like yet. So I think this event should be an opportunity to kind of dive a little bit deeper and hopefully get some answers.
Yeah, it's Black in America is an interesting dynamic as always. You know what I'm saying? Like I kind of like that Chris Rock joke that it's like, you know what I'm saying? Lord knows it's, it's what does he say? It's the America's like the uncle that paid for you to go to college, but also when you was a kid did some things that they never should have did to you. You know what I'm saying? So it's such a duality of what be going on here. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking forward to that discussion most definitely. So with that being said, stay connected to what we're doing here with Public Comment. Lord knows next week at Public Comment, I'm gonna have my 2 cents, but we'll probably be talking about some other things as we are getting ready for City Council to wrap up and go on break for a moment. A lot of stuff, if you're interested in any of the information, definitely you can check these archives, but go back to Malachi's notebook, other partners, connecting to everything that's happened with our budget, because that's really what City Council does, and that's really important, where the money goes. So keep watching Detroit is Different as well. Some cool episodes coming up today. So this is Thursday. You watching this on Thursday. So Regina Ann Campbell from Bill Institute. Some of the things that Bill Institute is doing, always a partner of Detroit is Different and supportive of so many Detroit is Different things. And also Alexa and Johnny from Black Tech Saturdays. It was a cool discussion that we shared, and just learning the origins of that. Pretty cool. So that's Detroit is Different. What's happening with Bridge Detroit and what's happening with you, Malachi?
We're staying busy, man. Subscribe to our newsletters. You'll get free news in your inbox pretty much every day now. We've got some new stuff coming. You can also self-select. I mean, if you're more interested in reading about food news and pop-ups versus the work that we're doing here on City Council, you can subscribe to that. If you want to know more about arts and culture, you can subscribe to that one. It won't hurt my feelings too much. But yeah, Bridge Detroit is where it's at. It's free. It's useful. It's responsive to community. And we are always tweaking our coverage decisions based on what we're hearing from people. So really, this only works if you guys reach out to us and tell us what you want to see. And we appreciate you for doing that.
Let's rock and roll. Peace.